When the supportive structures of the pelvic floor fail, the rectum loses its normal anatomical fixation. This results in a complete, full-thickness rectal prolapse, where the redundant tissue drops downwards, telescoping through the sphincter and protruding outside the body. To correct this, the primary clinical objective is operative management. The surgeon must physically resect the redundant bowel tissue, so the rectum can be secured back into its proper internal position. This module covers 3 distinct surgical pathways designed to achieve this correction: laparoscopic anterior resection, the perineal approach, Altemeirs procedure, and the Goligher modification. Long-term success depends on precise structural restoration and meticulous nerve preservation. If these anatomical goals are not met, the patient faces a high risk of permanent anal incontinence. This slide outlines the standard clinical indications and contraindications for laparoscopic anterior resection. High anterior resection is indicated for rectosigmoid tumors, while massive T4 tumors or a particularly narrow pelvis serve as contraindications for this specific approach. These diagrams illustrate the patient positioning and port access. The patient is secured in a Lloyd-Davies lithotomy position using padded Allen stirrups. The map for port placement includes a 10 mm camera port just above the umbilicus to provide central visibility for the surgeon. The procedure begins with medial to lateral mobilization. The surgeon retracts the sigmoid colon and makes the initial incision in the peritoneum directly over the sacral promontory, exposing the retroperitoneal space. In this anatomical illustration, you can see the critical vascular work. The surgeon isolates and divides the inferior mesenteric artery while taking care to spare the left colic artery. The left ureter and gonadal vessels must be continuously identified and protected during this maneuver. This diagram shows the downward progression of the posterior rectal dissection. The surgeon carries the dissection through the avascular plane to the level of the coccyx. Depending on the height, the tissue is mobilized for a partial or a total mesorectal excision. In this 3D view, we highlight a major surgical hazard. The dissection must remain intimately close to the rectum. Straying too far laterally risks severing the hypogastric nerve plexus, glowing here, which provides autonomic control to the bladder and reproductive organs. Once the redundant portion of the sigmoid colon and upper rectum is fully mobilized and the nerves are secured, the excess bowel is resected near the rectosigmoid junction. The remaining bowel ends are then reconnected. This new colorectal anastomosis requires a completely tension-free closure. Mechanical tension on these sutures increases the risk of post-operative leaks and inhibits the tissue's ability to heal. The abdominal approach offers surgeons excellent visibility and allows for secure fixation of the bowel. However, because it requires deep pelvic dissection, it carries a risk of nerve damage if the surgeon violates the established anatomical planes. If the abdominal route poses too much risk, surgeons utilize a perineal perspective. For Altemeiers procedure, the patient is placed in a Trendelenburg or prone jackknife position, allowing the surgeon to operate directly through the prolapse itself. Diagram A shows the opening maneuver. The surgeon makes a full-thickness circumferential incision 2 cm proximal to the dentate line. As this incision is deepened anteriorly, the peritoneal cavity is opened. Moving to diagram B, we see the unique exteriorization mechanism of this procedure. The surgeon pulls the redundant pelvic colon downward through the incision until the bowel becomes taut from above. In diagram C, the surgeon ligates the vascular pedicle. Once the blood supply is controlled, the entire exteriorized prolapsed section of the bowel is resected. This leaves 2 cut ends of bowel, the external anal cuff and the internal pelvic colon. The surgeon then constructs a Colo-Anal Anastomosis, matching the tissues and suturing them together with a series of interrupted stitches. Alternatively, this sequence illustrates deploying a circular stapler to achieve the same anastomosis. Once the staple gun is fired, the completed sutured stump is pushed back up into the anal canal and seated into the pelvis. Altemeiers procedure removes the redundancy without entering the abdomen. However, leaving too short of an anorectal stump during this resection increases the patient's risk of post-operative anal incontinence. Removing the redundant tissue fixes the immediate protrusion, but long-term success requires addressing the underlying muscular architecture of the pelvic floor. This view demonstrates a LevatorPlasty. The levator ani muscles are pulled together anteriorly and suture tight. This narrows the pelvic outlet, closing the gap that allowed the prolapse to occur. Next, the surgeon obliterates the deep peritoneal pouches. Suturing these spaces closed removes the anatomical pockets where a future prolapse could begin its descent. The surgeon then sutures the pelvic floor behind the mobilized rectum. This specific fixation pulls the anatomy back into alignment, restoring the natural anorectal angle required for normal bowel function. This vector diagram compares the mechanical stress forces at play. A standard perineal resection leaves the pelvic gap vulnerable to abdominal pressure, while the Goligher modification redirects those forces against a reinforced muscular floor. The Goligher modification treats the rectal redundancy as a consequence of pelvic floor weakness. By rebuilding the structural integrity of the levator ani, the surgeon provides the physical support necessary to prevent recurrence. These three models demonstrate the restored anatomical baselines achieved by the laparoscopic, Altemeier, and Goligher surgical approaches. Each procedure successfully meets the surgical mandates. The tissue redundancy is removed, the autonomic nerves are preserved, the anatomy is restored, and the final anastomosis is tension-free. Even with a flawless anatomical correction, the years of chronic stretching caused by the prolapse can leave the anal sphincters weakened. This results in persistent incontinence for a small percentage of patients. Recovering full control often requires rehabilitating these muscles in the months following surgery. Targeted pelvic floor exercises and thoracic stimulation work to retrain the sphincter, allowing the patient to regain the continence needed for a normal life. The first step is isolating the correct muscle group. You can locate them by mentally simulating the physical action required to stop the flow of urine midstream. This stopping action is only a tool for identification. You should never make a habit of practicing these exercises while you are actually urinating, as frequently interrupting the flow can lead to severe bladder irritation. Begin the long squeeze endurance routine. Actively tighten these muscle layers, pulling them inward and upward for a full 10 seconds. After every hold, fully relax for 10 seconds. Releasing tension and returning to the base position prevents muscle fatigue. To supplement the long holds, use the short squeeze protocol. This involves quickly tightening the muscles for just 1 second and letting go immediately, performing a rapid set of 10 repetitions. Using both techniques creates a complete training routine. The slow squeezes develop the baseline endurance needed for all-day support, while the rapid pulses train the fast twitch fibers to react instantly to sudden physical shocks. You can move these exercises into dynamic core movements, such as the floor bridge shown here. The timing of the contraction is key. Engage the pelvic floor before lifting your hips, maintaining internal tension throughout the 3 to 8 second hold. Your breathing directly influences the movement of these muscles. When you inhale, your diaphragm pushes the pelvic floor down. When you exhale, the diaphragm rises, allowing the pelvic floor to naturally lift back up. A common mistake is accidentally engaging the surrounding muscles. Ensure you are not squeezing your glutes, your thighs, or your abdominal wall, as this prevents you from loading the deep internal fibers of the pelvic floor. You must also avoid holding your breath during the exercises. Breath holding traps pressure in the abdomen that pushes the pelvic floor downward, which directly counters the upward contraction you are trying to achieve. Prioritize isolation over intensity. A gentle, accurate contraction of the correct internal muscles is far more effective for rebuilding your core strength than a forceful, high-effort flex of the larger external muscles. For the best results, perform 3 sets of these exercises daily. Each set should include a combination of the long endurance holds and the rapid response pulses. While your neurological control will improve quickly, the physical tissue takes longer to adapt. It requires several weeks of consistent daily loading for the muscle fibers to visibly thicken and form a denser, more resilient support mesh. The goal is to make this activation reflexive. Once the muscles are stronger, you can fire them a fraction of a second. Before you sneeze, lift a heavy object, or stand up from a chair to prevent any potential leaks. Strengthening this system provides a stable internal floor for your entire torso. By helping manage the internal pressure of your core, these muscles reduce the load placed on your lower back and help stabilize the base of the spine during movement. Mastering these mechanics gives you the tools to manage your own physical response to stress. Consistent practice secures this internal foundation, allowing you to return to an active, confident daily life without the constant worry of a leak.